Hi everyone, it's Megan and Allie here with COPIA Health, and we're going to talk about socially engaged yoga today. This is something we're really passionate about and feel like it needs to happen more. There's a way in which some forms of yoga have really become yoga flavored exercise classes, and we feel really inspired to promote a form of yoga that incorporates the principles and practices of yoga into our lifestyles, into the way we interact with the world, and ultimately into our communities. And when you look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which are really the primary text of yoga, the most important sutra says Stiram Sukham Asanam. What this means is that asana, which is the physical practice of yoga, is helping us to learn how to hold attention and stability in our way of existing in a way that also promotes ease. When you look at the word asana, it's very commonly now described as the yoga class where you go and do the physical postures. But the deeper meaning of this word asana, the etymology of this word, is much more rich. And it's related to how we interact with the world as a whole. So that when the Yoga Sutras were written, they were saying, here's how you can use a physical practice of yoga to practice self-inquiry, to heal the body, but also to understand the mind-body connection on a more deeper level, so that as you're practicing within the classroom, what you're practicing for is how you interact with the world. So that in fact this sloka, this sutra, means that the way that we engage with others and with our community and with the land and with all beings should be stable and full of ease. And so what happens when we do that is we can begin to relate to the world in a much different way. We can begin to see where yoga, which means union, to unite, to bring together, can actually start to change the way we interact in our communities and in the work that we do, so that we are always looking to see how can I honor the interwovenness of all humanity on this day? How can the work that I'm doing in the world be encompassing of a way of approaching asana, of my connection to all beings, that is promoting ease? And how can I be committed to that? How can that be my discipline? And so that's what we're talking about with socially engaged yoga, is how can this practice of getting inspired and getting back in touch with our bodies and understanding our connection be expressed in our daily lives more fully. And
so it makes me think a lot about when you first come into a yoga class for the first time, maybe, and thinking about what is it that brought you there. So oftentimes, and I'm sure you can relate to this, you get students that just say, I'm really tight and I need to learn how to stretch more. And I think that sometimes there's these subconscious or subliminal messages that happen that actually bring us to the yoga classroom. And part of it is sort of the world that's often in isolation in which we live. So think about when we go to a gym and we exercise, and most of our gyms are set up where there is exercise equipment that's all laid out next to one another. There's a TV screen, and in front of you not only are you watching TV, but you're plugged into your iPod or your iPhone, and maybe you're reading a Kindle all simultaneously. So you're doing this act of exercise, and yet you're not really fully connecting with yourself because you're so tapped in and plugged into these forms of technology, and then you're actually incapable of connecting with anyone else around you because you're also in this world. And kind of this repetitive pattern of repeating this sort of starts to stem and create these feelings of isolation, which many of us experience not only both in the, workout realm is sort of a very small piece, but in our daily lives. And so think about the first time that you came into a yoga class and you took that class, and maybe what it brought up for you personally. But I have to just guess or assume that there was some point in which that class, whether it was the communal Om or noticing the breath of the person next to you, that there was this understanding that this is actually something that's a much bigger practice. There is a bigger meaning to this. And I think because of the world in which we live, where it is sort of oftentimes isolation focused, it's very easy for us to go in and again take a yoga class and have it be, what is this rich, meaningful purpose for us? But have you noticed how it affects your relationships? How what you learn on the mat and you take off of the mat in terms of breath work, patience, internal dialogue, sensitivity to yourself, compassion, that starts to show up first and foremost, not only in your relationship with yourself, but also in relationships with those that are nearest and dearest to you. And I think that our main call to action here, as we're talking about socially engaged yoga, is, can there be a bigger movement? When you gather this group of individuals into a classroom who come from radically different backgrounds, but are there to engage with their breath, to engage with their bodies in a way that's actually mind-body connected, not just physically moving your body, what is the kind of magic that we have to create radical change? And so I think that that's the point that we're really interested in just exploring as a topic of inquiry, and also with possibility to have movement, to manifest what it is that we really want in the world.
And so we've seen such awesome examples of this, and I, in our last video we talked about conscious consumption, we talked about the dis-ease, the imbalance, the separation that's occurring at a global scale, where nearly 1 billion people are starving because of lack of access to foods, while 1 billion people are starving in a different kind of way, eating a lot of foods that are creating obesity and all kinds of chronic conditions. Socially engaged yoga is about looking at how can we address the separation that's occurring not just in our own individual body system, but in all of the living systems that we're a part of, in the food systems, in the healthcare systems, to create ease. And we've been running into an amazing number of people who are bringing yoga into prison systems, into schools, into communities of trauma and addiction. We are bringing ourselves yoga and mindfulness practices into the healthcare system. We're working with social workers, we're working with healthcare practitioners, we're working with wellness coaches to talk about the ways in which we can take the personal yoga and mindfulness practices into the work that we're doing as a way to alleviate some of the chronic conditions, some of the lack of purpose and meaning that we're seeing so rampant in our culture today. And we're also working with communities of trauma and communities around addiction and other lifestyle imbalances that can be supported here. And so we're working with a group of women who are just amazing. They inspire me all the time, and they help me to see how reconnecting or creating social equality through these practices of self-inquiry, but also of understanding the way in which our dialogue with one another in various areas of privilege or not is essential to actually embodying this practice of yoga. So we're asking you to do a couple of things this week to embody it in your own life. And Allie, why don't you lay those out?
Yeah, so if you're participating and listening to this video because you're participating in the 30-day Conscious Consumption Challenge, we included in the website a lifestyle guide for like really simple things that can just kind of help make a difference and help you start to change your behaviors, even if really slightly, to create more awareness as to this idea of what is socially engaged yoga. So in addition to some of the things that we kind of put into the guide, which specifically included... Which was, well, and I was going to say make a friend in a yoga class, but that's not something that we wrote. But that was something that we thought of immediately, and I think it's such a special moment, you know, when you go to that yoga class and you unroll your mat and it's the end of a long day, and maybe you lie down and you're just like, I gotta let it all go. But what if you turn to the person next to you and reach out your hand and shake it with them and connect with your eyes and just say, how was your day? And just allow yourself to move kind of from where you had come from that day into the moment. And the moment is not only with yourself, which oftentimes I find very hard to drop into right when you walk into a yoga class, because there's a lot of monkey mind, there's a lot of chatter. So how is it that you can kind of start from the busyness of your day and first just engage in the classroom? And by doing that is by unrolling your mat, turning to the person next to you, and introducing yourself. So that once you start to move inward and go inward and breathe next to this person, it's not just about you. It's really about using the collective force and the collective power to sort of have a full experience of what that yoga class, what that yoga practice can really look like.
And it might even inspire you to go and practice collaboration in other ways as well. And Allie and I are huge fans of collaboration. And this is something that's so important for what we're doing right now. And what it requires is vulnerability and courage. And so we're asking you to bring that into all the aspects of your life. Another thing we're asking you to do this week is to consider what it would be like to take whatever money you might otherwise spend on entertainment or clothing or products that aren't necessary for you to survive, and to consider donating that to practice selfless service, and to look into the ways in which you can offer back to your community, whether that is financially. There's a really great organization called Kiva that does loans for people, especially women entrepreneurs in various countries who are starting new companies and organizations and need support. And there are plenty of ways that you can offer in your community. Another one of the things we ask you to do is to go to your community garden, which not only benefits you, you get to be in the sun, you get to breathe the air, you get to have your feet in the dirt, you get to get your heart rate up and smell the flowers and hopefully connect with other people and laugh, which is one of the best medicines. We also want to just request of you that if you feel called to serve and you're in a position where the service that you have to offer is something that looks more like time or money, that you do some inquiry. And there's beautiful resources for that. There's a book called Half the Sky that has some really great organizations. We collaborate with Off the Mat Into the World. They're amazing. Kiva was already mentioned. But we hope that you will utilize inquiry and this deep connection to inspire the work that you do, and to actually do the reflection yourself. And we're, of course, huge proponents of mindfulness and meditation as well, to really look into how can I best serve from a place of connection. Cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. The website for the Conscious Consumption Challenge is the numeral 1 worldsf.com, and our website is COPIA, COPIA health.com. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.